The year is 1947, a time of great uncertainty and change. The ashes of World War II still smolder, casting long shadows over a devastated Europe. From the wreckage emerges a new world order, but it is not one of peace. Nations are rebuilding, yet tensions are rising. Instead, a new conflict is brewing, one that will redefine global politics for nearly half a century. The seeds of discord are being sown. This is the Cold War, a period marked by ideological battles and geopolitical maneuvering. It is a war without large-scale fighting between the main adversaries, yet it is a war of immense stakes. Yet, it is a war that will keep the world on edge, fearing a nuclear apocalypse. The threat of mutual destruction looms large. The Cold War was a clash of ideologies, a battle between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, democracy versus communism. The Cold War was a global struggle, affecting nations far and wide. No corner of the world was untouched. It was a battle for hearts and minds, a competition for influence and dominance. Propaganda became a powerful tool, but it was also a time of great technological advancement, particularly in the fields of nuclear physics and space exploration. The space race began. Understanding the Cold War is essential to understanding the world we live in today. Its echoes are still felt in modern geopolitics. Its legacy continues to shape international relations, influence foreign policy, and remind us of the fragility of peace. The lessons learned are invaluable. This essay will delve into the Cold War, exploring its causes, key events, and lasting impact. We will uncover the complexities of this era. We will examine how the wartime alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union crumbled, giving rise to an era of mistrust and hostility. The bonds of wartime camaraderie were shattered. From the Truman Doctrine to the fall of the Berlin Wall, we will trace the major turning points of this ideological conflict. Each event a step in a long, tense journey. The aim is to provide a concise yet comprehensive understanding of this pivotal chapter in human history. Join us as we explore the Cold War in depth. World War II had united the United States and the Soviet Union against a common enemy, Nazi Germany. This alliance was crucial in defeating the Axis powers and bringing an end to the devastating conflict. But, as the war drew to a close, the cracks in this alliance began to show. The camaraderie that had been forged in the heat of battle started to wane. The wartime cooperation was a marriage of convenience, masking deep ideological differences. These differences were not just political but also cultural and economic. The United States, a capitalist democracy, and the Soviet Union, a communist state, had fundamentally different visions for the post-war world. Each nation believed its system was superior and sought to expand its influence. The U.S. emerged from the war economically powerful. Its industries were booming, and it had become a global leader in technology and production. It sought to promote democracy and free markets globally, believing that economic stability and political freedom were the keys to lasting peace. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, was devastated by the war. Its cities lay in ruins, and its people faced immense hardship as they worked to rebuild. It sought to create a buffer zone of communist states in Eastern Europe to protect itself from future invasions. This was seen as essential for its security. This difference in goals and ideologies created an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. Both sides viewed each other's actions with increasing wariness. The Soviets felt threatened by America's economic and military might. The development of nuclear weapons by the U.S. only heightened these fears. The U.S. was wary of Soviet expansionism and the spread of communism. It adopted a policy of containment to prevent the spread of Soviet influence. Adding fuel to the fire were disagreements over the future of Germany and Eastern Europe. The division of Berlin became a focal point of these tensions. The U.S. wanted to see a unified and democratic Germany. It believed that a strong democratic Germany was essential for European stability. The Soviets, having borne the brunt of the Nazi invasion, insisted on heavy reparations and a communist government in East Germany. They sought to ensure that Germany would never again pose a threat. The Soviets also installed communist regimes in other Eastern European countries, creating what Winston Churchill famously dubbed the Iron Curtain dividing Europe. This metaphor captured the stark division between the two blocs. These actions further heightened tensions and solidified the divide between East and West. The construction of the Berlin Wall became a powerful symbol of this division. The late 1940s witnessed the Cold War transition from simmering tensions to concrete policies. The United States, alarmed by Soviet expansionism, adopted a policy of containment. This strategy, articulated by U.S. diplomat George Kennan, aimed to prevent the further spread of communism. The Truman Doctrine, announced in 1947, became a cornerstone of containment. It pledged American support to any nation threatened by communist takeover. Greece and Turkey, facing communist insurgencies, were the first beneficiaries of this doctrine. Following the Truman Doctrine came the Marshall Plan, a massive economic aid package offered to war-torn Europe. The plan, named after U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall, aimed to rebuild European economies and stem the tide of communism by fostering prosperity. The Marshall Plan was a remarkable success, helping Western Europe recover from the devastation of war. While the U.S. focused on economic and political influence, the Soviet Union consolidated its grip on Eastern Europe. The Soviets established the Cominform, or Communist Information Bureau, in 1947 to coordinate the activities of communist parties worldwide. In 1949, the Soviets detonated their first atomic bomb, ending America's monopoly on nuclear weapons. This development significantly raised the stakes of the Cold War. The nuclear arms race had begun. The world, already reeling from the devastation of World War II, found itself split into two opposing camps, each with its own ideology and vision for the future. The United States and its allies formed NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in 1949, a military alliance aimed at countering Soviet aggression and ensuring mutual defense. In response, the Soviet Union and its satellite states established the Warsaw Pact in 1955, creating a formidable bloc in Eastern Europe. These alliances solidified the division of Europe and set the stage for a series of proxy wars around the globe where the superpowers would clash indirectly. From the Korean War to the Vietnam War, these conflicts were fought not directly between the superpowers, but through their allies and proxies, leading to widespread devastation and loss of life. Each side sought to expand its influence and prevent the other from gaining ground, employing military, economic, and political strategies. The Cold War was not just a military and political struggle, it was also a battle for cultural and ideological supremacy, with each side promoting its way of life as superior. Propaganda, espionage, and psychological warfare became essential tools in this global contest, as both sides sought to undermine each other from within. And as the Iron Curtain symbolized the division of Europe, the Berlin Wall became the most iconic representation of the Cold War divide, a stark reminder of the ideological battle. This concrete barrier, erected in 1961, physically and ideologically separated East and West Berlin, becoming a potent symbol of the broader conflict between communism and capitalism, and the lengths to which each side would go to maintain control. The world held its breath as the superpowers vied for dominance, knowing that any misstep could lead to catastrophic consequences, potentially even nuclear war. The Cold War defined an era, leaving an indelible mark on the second half of the 20th century and beyond, shaping international relations and the global order in profound ways. As the Cold War progressed, both the United States and the Soviet Union invested heavily in nuclear arms. This arms race led to the development of more powerful and destructive weapons, creating a tense global atmosphere. At the same time, both superpowers were also competing in the realm of space exploration, striving to achieve new milestones and demonstrate their technological prowess. The launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union in 1957 marked the beginning of the space race, prompting the United States to accelerate its own space program. This era of intense rivalry not only pushed the boundaries of human achievement, but also brought the world to the brink of nuclear conflict. During the Cold War, espionage and psychological warfare were pivotal in the struggle between East and West. Both superpowers invested heavily in intelligence agencies, like the CIA and the KGB, to gather crucial information and undermine each other's efforts. Spy networks, covert missions, and propaganda campaigns were the norm, as each side sought to gain the upper hand without direct military confrontation. This shadowy battle of wits played out across the globe, influencing international politics and shaping the course of history. The period of Détente marked a thaw in Cold War tensions, with both the United States and the Soviet Union seeking to reduce the risk of nuclear conflict. Key agreements, such as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks or SALT, led to significant arms control measures. These negotiations aimed to curb the arms race and establish a more stable and predictable relationship between the two superpowers. Despite ongoing rivalries, Détente offered a glimpse of a more cooperative and less confrontational future. President Ronald Reagan's aggressive stance against the Soviet Union marked a turning point in the Cold War. His policies, including increased military spending and the Strategic Defense Initiative, put immense pressure on the already struggling Soviet economy. Meanwhile, internal issues such as economic stagnation and political corruption further weakened the Soviet state. By the late 1980s, the cracks in the Soviet system were becoming impossible to ignore, setting the stage for dramatic changes. With the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the Cold War came to an end, ushering in a new era of global politics. The United States emerged as the sole superpower, and the world faced the challenge of building a new international order. Questions about the future of NATO, the role of the United Nations, and the rise of new economic powers began to shape the post-Cold War landscape. The legacy of the Cold War continues to influence international relations to this day, as nations navigate this complex and ever-changing world.